Hello, hello, and welcome, friends, companions, and fellow adventurers. Welcome back to my little corner of the world, where today I will go on a little bit of a spiel about one of my favorite games that now has a sequel, Alan Wake 2. It's been 13 long years since the last game came out, and it's been a wait that has been worth it. To sum it up quickly before I go further into the video, it is a wait that I'm happy to do again because the experience that Remedy brought is fantastic. They did step away from the kind of genre that the first game was, which it was more of an action game with, psychological thriller elements. This one goes pure survival horror, and that's where it works really well. Although, that's not the whole experience from start to finish. Whereas the first game starts off with Alan and his wife going to an idyllic little getaway, and then the whole game turns into a huge wife rescue mission focus on world building and, setting up all the characters. This one has a bit of a different beginning. You see, you start by crawling out of a lake, and you realize you're a very old, bald man with his buttocks right there in your face. There is also a version if you will hide nudity with tighty whities, and honestly, I do not know what is worse. I felt as confused as the character, seemingly, not knowing what's going around as you're pushing through. If this was Alan, damn, did he age bad. You go forward, you see some lights, people seem to be avoiding you. They're like, is he skinny dipping? What's going on? As he's trying to go forward. And as you push into the forest, you see shadows, you hear voices. And then some freaky deer people who kill you. Cut to black, and we're introduced to the game's new protagonist, FBI agent Saga Anderson, together with her partner Max Payne, Alex Casey. Basically, all in the same. Very familiar face there. We're going through, the characters are talking, we know they're heading there for a FBI case linked to serial murderers. That's what they're expecting, expectations versus reality. And there's a little bit of world building, Saga talks to her child, you see the partners have very nice rapport. We end up being in charge of this case, and it works well. You get out the car, and the environments are stunning. The visuals in this game are honestly great. So great that a lot of systems actually cannot run them. There's give or take. But if you have access to FSR or DLSS, it should work well enough and still look very pretty. You go forward and you meet, first of characters that is not part of the main cast. And that's one of the deputies who talks to another deputy down the road. And they have this very goofy small town cop feeling. And I really like that. You proceed down some stairs, looking at beautiful vistas, talking, there's conversation between the characters, they're building up more world. There's little things you can pick up to learn a bit more about the area and what's happening, as well as some odd sides, weird structures, but skipping to that, you are here for an investigation. You are here to see the newest victim, to see what happened to them, and find out who is behind this. You get down, you're established in your case. You have this kind of FBI investigation, Batman Arkham style, finding clues and creating links. And this is where it's really cool. Because what Saga does, she has a mind play. It's kind of like in a Sherlock TV show, if you ever watched that, or movies, I guess. Really cool. You get, to pick up clues throughout the gameplay and not only link to the main story, but also to your side activities, and create links on a board to see how well they work and make deductions based on that. Turns out, the corpse right there is an old colleague of Casey by the name of Nightingale, who you might know from the first game. Went missing, and now we need to find out what happened, how did he get here. The case just gets creepier and creepier as things go on, you see, and it starts delving deeper into survival horror. It is a slower burn than the first game, but way more impactful. This sort of opening really just establishes things. We don't really know what's happening. It's not like, diving right into it. It just gives you enough to bite on and you want to have the whole meal. But at the same time, the game is still very campy and oozing that King and Twin Peaks atmosphere, which I'm all here for. Anyway, you wrap up your little investigation there, you send off the body to the coroner, so then you arrive into town. You're walking through, there's crazy coffee people dancing, sun is setting, and you meet the sheriff. Sheriff, who's very familiar to someone by the name of Jack Joyce, except his name now is Baker. Yes, Baker linked to Sarah from the previous game. As you go on, he tells you more about the case, you walk through, discuss it, but the cool thing is that there's so much going on around the town. The town actually seems lived in. There's different activities, people, go having conversations. Even the sheriff talks to different people, or Casey, and you can stay there and listen. You can just ignore it and keep going. The world building is all there around it. And as you're going through, you start realizing that some people recognize Saga and treat her as if, she's welcome back home and all that, as if they've been friends forever. Except this is the first time here, and it's part of that mystery that just develops further and further as you play. But you are here in your FBI business, and so you talk to the witnesses, and you get to experience the mind place again, making correct links in order to solve the case. And you find out at this point that Saga has another gameplay mechanic, which is her sort of gut feeling and deductions. Deductions which she wouldn't be able to know, but I guess she has a very, very good gut feeling. It must be that New York sort of cop thing. You can talk to a few people around the diner again. Some of them recognize it, but you got your lead as to why the person might have been there. And if you do have a look around, you can find some collectibles in the form of TV ads. And the TV ads are some of the funniest things in this game. The Koskela brothers are just amazing. Love the writing around them. Love the world building. Love how they advertise the business, because F the government, we got bolt cutters, right? Leaving the building diner, you go straight to the autopsy room. You're not waiting for anyone else. You're there. You don't need gloves because you're cool. And of course, everyone wants to put their hands into an open cadaver. Why not? Turns out that corpse doesn't really want to stay a corpse. Things kick out. It goes crazy, murdery, everything's falling apart, and we have another shift to the formula of the game from the first one. Now, the light doesn't serve as a point where all enemies disappear, but rather it's a big gameplay mechanic. If you get into the light, the enemies around cannot see you, but they're still there. That can be a little bit of reprieve. Also, no longer heals you, which comes in later with decision making with different equipment. Anyway, you managed to survive this encounter. Casey, likely alive, you gotta go after the corpse. Why did he walk out? As you're heading back towards the lake, there's some really cool world building from the Remedy verse. You got a link to the FBC, Federal Bureau of Control, right there, talking about an anomaly happening right now. You go lower, more of the horror theme is kicking up. The setting is now way darker. Your flashlight really comes into effect. And there is one thing that the game does quite predominantly, and that is the utilization of jump scares. They feel really well placed here and serve a purpose, especially with this like intense world, which, just gets crazier and crazier with every moment. But they are quite intense, especially if you have a headset on and it goes loud. Damn, it is scary. But I was never scared, of course, because, I'm used to horror and all that. Let me tell you where the enemies might be. As we're about to step into... Holy sh... The game pushes you through. You solve some basic puzzles, found some fuses, Resident Evil style and all that, and push onwards towards your first boss fight. The boss fight is awesome. The experience there is really cool. Again, the first game, they would kind of be there, you shine the light, and then, Here you actually push through. It's kind of... It's a whole separate set piece, and it works really, really well. It's intense, it's gruesome, it's confusing. This is exactly what Sega's feeling in this moment, and you feel it as a player, and I love that. Whether you win, kill the thing or not, I'm not going to tell you, not even going to tell you what you're fighting. But you end up on the beach, where you meet Alan. And this is where Remedy really shines for the world building, because that 13-year wait between games, yeah, that's a part of the story. Alan has been gone for 13 years. Where has he been? What has he done? We don't know. I mean, if you played, American Nightmare, so you might have an inkling to what he's doing. But we get it from his perspective. They sit him down and they want to talk more about it. And now you get to play Alan. And his experience is a way more bizarre than that of Saga. The setting that he's in is New York, so you have a completely different environment to what you're doing, forests, Pacific Northwest. Now you're in the middle of a capital city. You start there as a part of a talk show. Confusing. Alan doesn't seem to know what's going on. Everything's all over the place. But, you go through with it, you manage to get out the building, and I introduced some really cool elements. I really actually like Alan's playthrough side a little bit more, I think, than Saga's, even though Saga is still awesome and I love the world building around there. But he has cool mechanics, like, for example, the little light you have, the way you can transport light charges around, is that little bit of environmental problem solving, which really fits well in the setting. Anyway, you push out, you get out the movie studio, And you get to meet Alex Casey, or at least the written version of Alex Casey, or maybe not, maybe it's real. Who knows what's going on at this point, right? You also realize as you push on that Alan also has his version of the mind place, except he's not creating a big board with links to the crime. What he's doing is he's writing a script, or rather rewriting it, a manuscript, working on different perspectives, and it changes the environment around you, which is again something really cool. I love how they integrate it. You play a little bit more, and I'm not going to spoil much more of the story, but from around this point onwards, you can just switch between the two characters at any point you want. Well, any point as long as you are in one of the save rooms. And that is really cool. If you want to just go from the start to the beginning of Saga's story, you can do that. If you want to do the same for Alan's, you can do that. If you want to swap between every single save room, you can do that. You're absolutely welcome to do so. I've personally played basically all of Alan's side to the end before doing Saga's. And well, I say the end. There's a point where the game cuts you off because the finale is kind of between the two characters. It's really cool. And then you switch over to Saga and go through her bits. And I think, to my knowledge, that might be the better of the two, because Alan's side offered some things that I feel like what Saga's story shows could be a little bit of spoilery, but maybe it would have cut off earlier, I'm not sure. For my next playthrough, I will definitely do Saga's side first. From this intro itself, you can really see how much Remedy grew and developed since Alan Wake 1. They made two brilliant games in between, Quantum Break and Control. And they are not a studio to be there and rest on the laurels. They grow, they develop, and that's the beauty of it. And they improved their formula a lot. See, from Quantum Break, that was the beginnings of them redefining the combat, which then got even better in Control with the different abilities, zipping around and everything. And in Alan Wake, it's a lot more grounded. And you have, weapons variety and everything, but it feels great. From Control, they had those little bit of horror elements, and they go into this here, survival horror elements. You have limited resources to take down your enemies, and you have to take them down quickly, or you're gonna get overwhelmed. However, it feels like I ended up with a very full stash. Like my stash was packed. Maybe that's because I'm a hermit and I just stash everything and I don't use it. But the nice thing is that the final segments of the game actually made me use everything. I only had a few things left, and I love that because I'm the sort of person that I will hoard everything like a goblin and wait till the final boss fight and never even use it on that fight. Here I started just using things left and right, and that was a fantastic experience. I kind of feel like maybe the game has a system where the more you have, the less it gives. I really like that. What it probably learned even better from its previous titles, both Quantum Break and Control, is the merge of media. You see, Quantum Break was a project where they were like half TV show, half game, and they do this here. They combine the media. There's so many scenes that are just acted out, and they're brilliant. You see the chemistry between the actors. You see how they perform and get into their scenes, and it's great. One moment you're watching TV, next moment you're playing. It's seamless in between. And music. They use music to tell stories, and it is great. The set pieces that creates. We Dance chapter, if you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. Probably one of the best moments in gaming I've ever seen. All I can say is honestly what they accomplished here is they really stepped back and decided to show the world what gaming can currently achieve as an art form. They are the peak of that peak, and it is fantastic, and I hope to see more great things from them. They've also learned that they don't need a big open world game like everyone seems to be doing nowadays. They just want to tell a story. The levels are open enough. You can explore. You see those little collectibles and everything, and things to sell and things to tell, side stories. But it's very focused. You go towards your goals, and it does drive you there. And if you want to explore more, great. You're gonna get rewarded with collectibles for your combat. You're gonna get upgrades. You're gonna get weapon parts as Saga. You're gonna get words as Alan, and they both improve your equipment. Feel like maybe Alan's one is kind of cooler because it's like more puzzly. You're looking around for the different words you need to shine on them, and then the actual abilities you get for your weapons are maybe better. But both are fun either way. Although I must say that it kind of feels like this upgrade system shouldn't be in a game exactly. I much prefer the way Resident Evil does it, for example, where you actually find actual weapon parts like, extended barrel or something, other than investing weird points. It works well in Control because of the basis of the weapon, but here it's not so good. So maybe for the future releases, just consider that maybe, a little bit better. And I must say, some of the collectibles, especially on Saga's side, when you're going through, really told me that my brain might be rotting slowly, because those algebra puzzles took me ages to figure out. And I am ashamed to say that. And I'm going to work on improving it because I need to be as good as I used to be. The story also is still split into chapters. And I know now there is chapter select and a new game plus mode called the Final Draft. I haven't played it yet, as even though I've fully beat the game within the first week that it was out. I got 100%, I got all the achievements, played about 30 hours in total. I decided to take a step back because from my experience there were a few small issues that I wanted fully ironed out before I dive back in. Like, for example, when I started the Final Draft initially, the save I wanted to carry over didn't. Now I think they're doing a thing where they just have a checklist of everything you unlocked and everything carries over, which is great. I fell through the world once. I had one game crash, which is not too bad for 30 hours. I had a few instances where there was a white screen in the Mind Palace and everything was stuck and I couldn't interact with things, and that was kind of annoying. And also the loading screens, which are really cool because as you travel between locations as Saga, she has little phone calls and conversations and other things like that. The audio there was out of sync. All the other issues were fixed by just, reloading and I'm back. The audio issue never quite got fixed. I'm hoping that's fixed when I'm playing the second time, but it's not major, just a little bit. Basically it plays, there's a small pause, and then it continues playing till the end. And that just doesn't match up with the subtitles, but it might be just my system. Like I've mentioned before, if you're a big fan of combat gameplay and intensive situations, this game does it quite well. You have more weapon variety than the first game. There's actually not too many weapons. I believe there's 3 as Alan. You get a revolver, shotgun, and a flare gun. And as Saga, you get a crossbow, 2 varieties of shotgun, hunting rifle, pistol. Even the pistols are different because one gets a revolver, one gets a pistol. The characters play different, but it's enough to keep it entertaining, and you have to kind of switch between them as you're running out of ammo, which I really like as a gameplay mechanic. And the enemies pack a punch, especially on the highest difficulty. They can take you down real quickly, especially now that there's a little bit more variety to them and the way they behave. I mean, a lot of the types of enemies are similar to what they were in the first game, but they're a lot harder to kill. And you got things like wolves, which were constantly jumping me out of nowhere and just sprinting around like a wolf would. It's fun to deal with it, essentially. You just try to pick your targets, and what's even better is the game rewards skillful gameplay. Whereas the first game, whether you had a headshot or not, didn't matter. Here, you land a headshot, you do tend to deal more damage. So you can actually take people out quite easily with the crossbow if your aim is good enough with a clear headshot. Most of enemies will go down in 1 or 2 shots from that. Or on top of that, the different consumables you can get little gas tanks and so on. You can light them up, flares. They really reward timing things correctly and using them to your advantage. What's also really cool is on Saga's side especially, you get little charms. And those charms enhance different sides of your gameplay. So for example, your flashlight might last longer, or you get an additional charge in your flashlight, or a charm that lets you revive automatically without dying, and things like that. And that lets you add a little bit of a build to how you want to tackle the game. If you want to focus on combat, there's something that's going to reinforce that. If you just want to run away, you can do that as well. And you can run away from quite a few situations in this game in the open world. And where the equipment really comes in this time is with the healing mechanics. No longer can you just stand in a beam of light and it's going to fully heal you up. You actually have to use your healing items that you acquire. Some of them heal you just a little bit, some of them heal you fully. You get a decision to make. Do you want to keep pushing with the health you have because you might need that healing item in a boss fight or something? Or are you going to use it now and just stay top throughout? I was kind of in a mix of both. There was hardly any times where I was running around with low health for a big amount of time because the game is generous enough giving you those supplies as long as you don't get slapped around too much. I don't know how your experience was though, so do let me know. And I'm sure, like you all know, what Remedy really shines at in their games is atmosphere in world building. And here it's done really well. Like I mentioned a few times now, the game is stunning. It looks beautiful. The sound design, spectacular. The music choices, fantastic. Like most chapters have songs written especially for the game, which once you beat it, make a lot of sense. They explain things as you go. And it's awesome. The vibes are there. You feel like you're a part of this world, and you just want to see the story from start to finish in the best way possible. There's great set pieces. The levels change as you progress, especially on Alan's side with the different writing mechanics that you get. You know, you jump from gloomy streets of New York to vibrant forests in the middle of the night with things dashing between the trees trying to get you. It is really cool. Overall, if you haven't played the game, and I know horror is not for everyone, so you know it might be a little scary, but I'm sure if you play it on a lighter difficulty with the lights on, you will have a fantastic experience. I can definitely recommend the game. It is a game that's brilliant from start to finish. They don't have any pesky microtransactions or anything. It's there for the story. And there's 2 DLC chapters coming out later this year, which I'm really looking forward to playing at some point. Thank you, Remedy, for finally showing us the ocean. And on to the next adventure, eh?